All right, good morning and welcome to Community Chit Chat here on the Wednesday edition. It's 9 o'clock. I'm Jim Boston. V as in Victor, O-S-S-E-N. We're on KMBY over the air at 19.4 and on the internet at KMBYTV.com. And I have a special guest via the phone, but because of modern technology and electronics and because of pictures, we have her picture here, and I'm going to bring her up as I do this. Here we go. Oh, I see. I pushed the wrong button, but I'm good. Wendy Askew. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
It's a beautiful Wednesday morning, and I'm happy to be on the phone with you today, Jim.
Well, I'm happy to be on the phone with you. You and I go back a ways, back to when I used to do the Your Town radio and television program quite some years ago.
That's right. That was 2009.
I think you were at that time. You were an aide to Jane Parker. Was that correct at that time or not?
That's correct, and I still am.
You still are.
10 years later. Still working with Jane.
We're still working with, but you're also on the school board somewhere, right?
I am. So in 2015, Jane convinced me to run for the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District Board of Education. But that's a volunteer gig. That's
it is.
You get paid. You get a small stipend for being an elected official, but yeah. That's on top of my full-time work with the county. Okay, so that's yeah. It was a little confusing, but I understand it now. Yeah. So my paid work is for the County of Monterey.
Never quit your day job.
Supervisor Jane Parker.
Yes.
And my volunteer work is with the school board, representing Marina. And then in addition to that, I spend a horrendous number of hours as a candidate running for Jane's seat when she retires.
And that's in November, or no? Actually, I guess January, right? Or how do they do that?
At our primary election in March, and I came out on top with a strong 10-point lead.
Right.
To a general election in November,
but then taking the seat is actually December or pardon?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So Jane officially retires the first week in January, and whoever wins will replace her in January.
I see. Now, of course, Jane and I go back. Did she ever tell you the story how we got together?
No.
Oh, it's actually kind of interesting. I met her when she was running against Jerry Smith for county supervisor many, many years ago, the late Jerry Smith. And what was interesting was Jerry Smith, I believe, and he won, but he didn't win by very much. He won.
It was the 2004 race.
Was it 2004? Okay. And while I am in the same political camp as Jerry Smith was, he made a statement that that was in the paper that said that he says, well, it's clear that the public wanted me, or something to that, And the truth is he only won by a couple of votes. In fact, it wasn't decided for about 2 weeks after the election because they were still counting votes. So
it was something like 200 votes. It was, it's one of those examples where every single vote matters. If you think your vote doesn't count, look at some of our local elections, and you'll see that we come down to just a handful of votes to make the difference.
Yes. So when I saw that he made that statement, even though I liked him, I'm in basically the same camp and not necessarily the same camp as Jane, I gave her a call because I was a little upset with that, and I said to her, how would you like a regular stint as a host for your town? So she tells that story every once in a while. She probably didn't tell you that, but that's okay.
When she got elected, we had a lot of fun figuring out who would be on Your Town and setting up those guests, and I had fun filling in for her a handful of times as a host, and it's a great chance for the community to know about some of the amazing organizations and people who are out there.
Do you know I have
good program.
I have copies of all those programs, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
And I was thinking maybe one day I'll do whatever, I don't know, could be a whole week thing. So let's talk a little bit about you threw in these 3 letters here about something to ask you about since the SIP, and it took me a while to think about that. Of course, you talk about it all the time, I'm sure, in your work. but that means stay in place. Is that right?
Yep, stay in place.
Stay in place.
Shelter in place. Yeah, shelter in place is what we refer to it. And since we're saying it all the time, we've sort of taken to calling it the SIP, shelter in place.
And just out of curiosity, can we tell by numbers that is, as far as Monterey County is concerned, is that you think it's really helped, or do we have numbers?
Well, we've got some great data, and one of the things I was hoping to share with your viewers today was where to find some of the information that's available and being put out by the county around the shelter-in-place order and around just
shelter-in-place. That's the term, shelter-in-place.
Shelter-in-place.
Not stay in.
So we do have a daily situation report that's emailed out to anyone who's interested in receiving it. It's also posted online, but it provides daily updates to the number of tests that have been conducted, as well as the number of positive cases that have been confirmed with a test. There's details about the age group, the gender, even the region of the county that those confirmed cases are in. So it's a lot of information that's available for anyone who wants to, track it on their own, not just rely on what the media puts out. And I will just throw in there, the media has been the most phenomenal partner these last 2 months. I think they've been pushing for more information. They've been asking the right questions. They've been pursuing the right stories. And as a result, our community is better informed. And so I've always appreciated our local media, but I've never appreciated them more than I do right now.
Let me ask you this. What's your title with Jane right now with the county supervisor? You're an aide, you're an assistant, what are you?
Yeah, we call it an aide. It's a really not exciting title, and I'm not one to really care about the title as much as the work. So different offices, I think some of our offices are now calling it a legislative analyst or a policy aide. You can call me what you want. What I do is I make sure that the supervisor is prepped and fully informed before she walks in to any meeting where she's making decisions.
Now, is there another person with your? I'm sorry. Is there another person with your title, or you share that by yourself?
Yeah. So there's two policy analysts in each office, and an administrative sort of office manager type of person.
Okay. All right.
And so in Jane's office, what we did was we came in, the county has 26 different departments, each with, tremendous responsibilities. So we took all 26 departments, we basically split them in half. So I took any department that was related to health and social services and public safety, housing, budget, and my colleague in Jane's office took the department's land use, public works, water issues. And those are sort of where we've specialized in building our relationships with county department leaders and understanding the issues. And then we cross-train, so I have a good sense of what she's working on, and she has a good sense of what I'm working on.
Now, the county, they operate Natividad, is that correct?
Yeah, the county, Monterey County right now is one of the few counties left in the state that has a county hospital, and it has really been an asset for us right now.
Now, if somebody gets this virus, do they go there?
Well, so anyone who is who's experiencing symptoms that require being seen by a doctor, we want them to call their doctor. Even though we're telling people to stay home, if you need medical care, call your doctor, call a county, call a clinic, any clinic. Doctors on duty is still seeing patients. And if you're having respiratory concerns, if you're having trouble breathing, if you have a cough, all of our county hospital, all of the hospitals in the county have set up special tents where they can isolate people who may show up having COVID symptoms, and they can determine whether or not that person needs to, just go home and self-isolate. They can determine whether that person qualifies to be tested, and if that person needs higher level medical care, they can admit that person into the hospital with very specific safety measures in place to keep them from infecting anyone else who might be at the hospital.
You said a tent.
A tent, yeah. They've got special. If you've driven by any of our hospitals, you'll see like a big white tent in the parking lot adjacent to their emergency room.
Okay. No, I haven't.
It's where they're screening folks for COVID symptoms.
So go there first.
You go there first. If you've got first of all, you call.
Oh.
You got to call first. If you've got respiratory symptoms, if you think that you have COVID, we want you to call the hospital before you show up so that they can be ready when you arrive.
Yeah. By the way, do you personally, have you known anybody that's had that you know?
I have, because testing is so limited in Monterey County still, we just, and I'll talk more about testing in a minute, but because testing is so limited, it's been really difficult for people over the past 6 weeks to get a test unless they're being admitted into the hospital. Mm-hmm. So I have good friends who've had symptoms who are pretty sure that that's what they've been sick with COVID, but because they were unable to get a test, the same whether they were tested or not, the same outcome is that they go home and they self-isolate for 14 days while they recover. If they're healthy enough to not need hospitalization and you are sick for any reason, you go home and self-isolate. So I think one of the downfalls of having, or one of the risks of having the testing information so publicly available is that it gives people a false sense of security, and that they see, oh, there's only 200 cases in Monterey County, or there's only 7 cases in the Big Sur larger peninsula region. So that makes them feel like, oh, there's only 7 cases. The reality is that because we've only tested 3,600 people, we've only conducted 3,600 tests total. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who may have symptoms but didn't qualify for a test early on when testing criteria was very strict, or didn't have the need. The treatment is the same whether you get tested or not if you have mild symptoms. The treatment is go home and self-isolate and rest. So yes. So long answer to your short question. I do have friends that I believe have been sick with COVID, but because they didn't get tested, we don't know for sure.
Don't know for sure. Have they gotten better?
Yeah. We have huge numbers of people who are recovering, and that's some of the data that's being presented on the county website around the number of people who have recovered so far. Once you get tested, if the county health department confirms that you are positive for COVID, they send someone out to be in touch with you who does what we call contact tracing, and that's where they'll say, hey, Wendy, you tested positive, you're not sick enough to be in the hospital, but you're home, so let's make sure that you're self-isolating at home. Who else did you spend time with this week?
Yeah.
Oh, you hung out with, your husband. Okay, who did your husband hang out with? Oh, he went to work. Okay, where does he work? Oh, he works at, that location. Let's go talk. So they trace back anyone who
you're not too sure where he works, right?
And so they're trying to identify who did you get this from.
Yes.
And that's one of the ways that we determine how widespread this is in the community. So there's a lot of situations where we call it our community-acquired transmission. And we're growing. The number of people who can't identify where they got exposed is a growing number. And so that tells us, again, that this virus is out in the community. It's spreading in the community.
Now, you say it's spreading.
It's spreading.
Yeah, but are numbers going up? Are you saying that?
Our numbers continue to go up. As of, let's see here. So a month ago, on April 6th, we had, 64 cases confirmed via testing. And a month later, on May 5th, we have 237 confirmed cases. So that's a fairly decent increase.
Does that include the other 60?
So that includes, those are the total cases.
Oh, okay.
Went from 64 total cases to 237 total cases.
Wow. Okay.
So it's out there, it's spreading, and the health officer has been really clear that when you leave your house, when you go out into the community, whether you're doing your essential grocery shopping or taking your dog for a walk, you run the risk of either being exposed to someone who has this, or possibly being an asymptomatic carrier yourself and exposing the people around you. So
well, we hear this talk, and it kind of changes day to day a little bit from the governor of California about loosening up some of our restrictions, and then it seems to change the next day. Offhand where we stand with that by any chance?
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges, just as an elected official trying to provide information back out into the community, I'm not an epidemiologist. I work very closely with public health partners, but I'm not a public health expert.
Okay.
And so we really are relying on some of these public health experts to guide us. And because this disease is so new, and because so much is unknown about how it, travels in a community, who's most at risk, how do we control it, how deadly is it, we don't have great information to be relying on. And so, early on, for instance, the CDC put out information and said, you don't need a mask. A mask doesn't protect you. And, 15 days later, they're saying everyone's required to wear a mask.
Yes.
So it's confusing, right? And,
especially.
I want to make sure that, what I'm saying to my constituents and to my family and to my friends is accurate. And it's frustrating and it's hard when some of the information that's coming out from our, trusted partners is changing. And so what I'm, relying on is the fact that, as we learn more information, the information that's put out to the public is going to change.
It seems like the masks are a little easier to get nowadays than they were even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, and apparently what as I understand it, the reason they were saying to the public, don't wear a mask, is because of the shortage. And this is another one of those acronyms, PPE. You see that in the news, PPE, personal protective equipment.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that anyone who is out in the community, whether it's our firefighters or our home health care workers or our doctors and nurses, or even our retail folks who really are pretty exposed, we want to make sure that they have enough personal protective equipment when they're out in public or when they're engaging with the public. And when the PPE supplies were in shortage, with a shortage of PPEs, we didn't want the public to suddenly go also buying PPEs. And so now that they've put these face covering orders in place, they've been really clear. They're trying to say they're not calling it a mask. They're calling it a face covering.
Okay.
They really are asking people to not use PPE, not use a surgical mask. Don't use, one of those N95 masks, but get a cloth mask. Make a cloth mask.
Are they saying that because the others aren't as available? Is that what they're saying?
The others are still in short supply.
Okay.
And if we were to experience some surge of cases, our hospitals are, I believe that, the goal is to have 30 days of supply. But when you have a hospital that has a number of patients who are all positive, every time a doctor or nurse or healthcare provider walks into that room with that patient, they have to put on this full set of personal protective gear. And you can burn through that PPE fairly quickly from what I understand. So we don't want to end up in a situation where those who are on the front lines have run out of PPE.
Somebody told me that because of my age, I just turned 70 in December, that I could go.
Birthday.
Thanks.
Happy late birthday.
6 months. Yeah. Well, anyway, because of my age, I could go to Chomp and probably qualify for a mask if they had any. I understand that would put me upper list. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, no, I know that there are a lot of groups who are giving away masks. I think one of the, there's a lot of really good news stories out there, and the city of Seaside has mobilized their residents to do mask sewing. So anyone in Seaside can reach out to the city manager and get a kit where it's got the fabric, all the supplies you need to make face coverings. So, Jim, if you need a mask, I'll bring you some masks.
Well, you know what I found? I found a few weeks ago that the Save On Cleaners in Sand City, there's a lady there who's does alterations, and she actually makes little masks with a little metal thing for your nose. It looks like
around your nose.
She stole that. Yeah, she stole that copy from somewhere, but very nice. So I got a couple of there, and my wife says you need to wash that.
You do wash your mask every couple days.
Now, some people I see people driving, though they can be by themselves in a car, and they're driving on the road and they're wearing a mask. I don't know. I guess this is more of a thing for maybe talking with somebody from the health department. If you can email me any references of somebody to contact, Because if I get in the vehicle and I'm by myself, I drop the mask. But if I get out to go into the supermarket, then I obviously put the mask on. Does that sound about right, or am I not good?
So here's the thing. I'm going to just give a website. It's mtyhd.org/COVID-19. mtyhd.org/COVID-19.
Okay.
There's so much information about all of the answers to all of these questions, right? So on that website, we have details about the mask order, the face coverings order for Monterey County, you don't need to wear a face covering when you're alone. So if you're driving alone in your car, you don't need to have your face covering on then. If you're a child under the age of 12, it is not required that you wear a face covering in public. Mm-hmm. It may be best practice for some of the little ones, but I don't know how I could keep a mask on my child's face. That seems like a disaster to me. Yeah. So under the age of 12, it's not required. If you're exercising, if you're out on a run, if you're riding your bike, if you're breathing heavily, because you're out exercising, you're not required to be wearing a mask. It's recommended, again, but it's not a requirement. So use your common sense is definitely what I tell people. The goal is, again, to protect each other. And wearing a mask, Jim, isn't going to protect. When I'm sitting with you and you've got a mask on, your mask doesn't protect you. Your mask is protecting me. Your mask is assuming that you are an asymptomatic carrier, and that when you cough, when you breathe, when particles leave your mouth, I don't want those particles touching me. Mm-hmm. So your mask protects me, and my mask protects you. And so the more that we sort of collectively create a culture in which we agree that our, shared health is dependent on one another, that's where the face coverings come into play.
I talk a lot in the when I do some live stuff here about how, it's never going to be the same. Even 6 months, a year from now, we're not going to be shaking hands with anybody. We're not going to do that anymore, are we?
Yeah, so I'm struggling with this, Jim. I'm going to be honest. I don't like shelter in place. I don't like, I had dreams last night about running around hugging friends.
Yeah. Well, I don't do that anyway, so I'm out of that.
I feel like I'm grieving over the loss of a life and a society and a culture that I really liked and I enjoyed, and I was doing all right in the pre-COVID world. And
your phone has changed for a second. Did you go?
Oh, did it? I've got a hug. I've got an 8-year-old hugging me. That's covered up my microphone.
Oh, very good. All right.
Yeah, I took a picture of my son.
Did you say 8 years old?
Cool. Yeah, 8 years old.
I remember when when it was a little tiny kid.
Yeah, do you remember when I was pregnant? I probably came in and did shows time while I was pregnant.
What's the kid's name?
He's Quinn.
Quinn? Q-U-I-N?
Quinn. Q-U-I-N-N. Quinn.
2 N's, okay.
He's smart. He's kind. He is loving.
Yeah. Can I talk? Can I say hi to him?
Yeah, and Jim, I've got the headphones on. But,
you got the headphones. That's all right. Okay.
It's so hard. He hasn't played with another child in 7 weeks.
Oh, that's all sorts of downfalls that you don't think about.
He is so desperate to go outside and run around and climb a tree and swing on the swings with his friends, and this is really hard for him. It's hard for even in the best of situations, right? Like, I don't have to worry about buying groceries for my family. I don't have to worry about paying my rent or my mortgage. But I'm saying it's really hard, right? But for so many of my neighbors in Marina, when I drive through Marina on a daily basis, we have food bank distribution sites set up in Marina every day of the week. And there's a line of 500 to 1,000 cars every day waiting in line to get a bag of groceries so that those families can feed each other. Mm-hmm. And that's hard, right? Like, we want to talk about what's hard about this. That's hard. And in MPUSD, leading into the pandemic, we had 1 in 10 of our students who was classified as McKinney-Vento classification homeless.
Oh, yeah.
10 of our students was homeless. Our families were living on the edge of, fiscal, like a fiscal cliff. And so many of those families and those parents are not eligible. They've lost their employment now, and they're not eligible for public assistance, right, because of their documentation status.
Oh.
So while the state of California has stepped up in heroic ways and is providing, pandemic unemployment insurance and unemployment insurance, and is expanding the amount of funding that goes to everyone who has food stamps, if you're undocumented, you don't qualify for any of those benefits. And so we have a whole workforce here on the peninsula that was sort of, pretty close to the edge to begin with. We now took away their employment, and they don't qualify for any supports. So that's where we have thousands of cars lined up every week for food. So when I talk about this being hard, I have to put it in perspective that my hard is not the hard that so many of my friends and neighbors are experiencing.
Yeah. Boy, all right. Tell you what, can we take just a little 2-minute break? Let you grab something to drink or something. I don't know.
Here when you get back.
Pardon?
I'll be right here when you.
Oh, that might be a good idea. I mean, you can go get a drink, but I got a little 2-minute break, and we'll be right back. So let me do this. I got to figure out my technical stuff while I'm at it, and we will come back. Let's see. Here I am. And I will engage this like so. There we go. All right, we'll be right back.
KMBY, Monterey.
Hi, Jim Vossen here for the Seaside Chamber of Commerce. If you're looking for a great place to eat in Seaside, like the Googie Grill on Del Monte near Canyon Del Rey, or the Wakatobi Japanese Grill at 1130 Fremont Boulevard, check out SeasideEatAndStay.com. If you're looking for a great place to stay in Seaside, like the Econo Lodge Bay Breeze Inn at 2049 Fremont Boulevard, or the Big Embassy Suites at the corner of Canyon Del Rey and Del Monte, check out SeasideEatAndStay.com. If you're looking for a new or used car, check out SeasideAutoDealers.com, where you'll find BMW of Monterey, Victory Toyota, Lexus Monterey Peninsula, and more. Check out SeasideAutoDealers.com. For more great information about Seaside, check out SeasideCalifornia.us. That's SeasideCalifornia.us. All of this and more brought to you by the Seaside Chamber of Commerce. Not a member? Join today. Call 394-6501. Hi, Jim Vossen here for the Monterey Chamber of Commerce. If you are looking for a great place to dine in Monterey, like the old Fisherman's Grotto on Fisherman's Wharf, check out MontereyEatPlayAndStay.com. If you are looking for a great place to play in Monterey, like Cannery Row, check out MontereyEatPlayAndStay.com. If you are looking for a great place to stay in Monterey, like the Portola Plaza or the Monterey Tides on the beach next door to Seaside, check out MontereyEatPlayAndStay.com. If you are looking for cars, car parts, body shops, car clubs, etc., check out MontereyCarChannel.com. It's quite interesting and fun. For more great information about Monterey, check out MontereyCalifornia.us. That's MontereyCalifornia.us. All of this and more brought to you by the Monterey Chamber of Commerce. Not a member? Join today. Call 394-6501. All right, we're back. Community Chit Chat right here on KMBY over the air at 19.4 and on the internet at KMBYTV.com. I'm here with our special guest today, if I may, and that's Wendy Root Askew. And she is live on our phone. She's live as far as a picture on the screen right now. And she is holding, are you still holding Quinn?
I am. I've got an 8-year-old in my arm.
8-year-old in your arms. Do you have any others besides the 8-year-old?
No, I've got a 1-year-old German Shepherd puppy and a husband.
And a husband? Oh. So let's just really quickly, now, do you go to the office at all?
No, I'm pretty much set up to work from home.
Pretty much.
Here I've got a home office and my computer and the whole setup
and you
here.
got all that Zoom stuff set up and everything?
Oh yeah, we've been on Zoom meetings all day. You know,
Yeah.
Tim, my mom is sheltering in place with us, and my mom is in sort of one of the at-risk categories, and I'm taking that pretty seriously. We're making sure that we are limiting any of her exposure,
right?
And so that means not going into the office unless I have to. there are meetings and things that we still need to be at. So, we went over and arranged for a tour of the alternate housing sites for all of our local mayors. And, I make sure that I'm at those events that where we need to be. But for the most part, really trying to limit exposure to other people.
What, just out of curiosity, what is the criteria essential? When you say unless you need to stay in place unless you have something essential you have to do. You have any idea what defines that?
Yeah, it's a funny term, right? And I don't think it's very intuitive. I mean, I've not found it to be very intuitive. And it gets very technical when you read the specific order that comes out from the health department. I just want to mention one more time, we have that the health department web page where we've got a lot of details in FAQ. You can read the full health officer order. But, essential just really means, and there are some technical terms, but if you don't need to go, do something, you should probably just stay at home. And, that term need for different people looks different. And my family, I'm going to tell you, for the other day, my mom was here, Quinn was having a hard day, and I just told everyone, I said, get in the car. We have to get out of this house. For our mental health, it was essential that we got in that car. And
hop on the highway and turn all the windows down to get that fresh air blowing in, right?
We did. We drove by the ocean. And, an little 1 hour outing. And it was everything that we needed to kind of reset the clock here at my house. And,
if I may, what does your husband go to work? What does he do, if I may?
My husband's an architect.
Oh, okay.
So he, early on, before even the official stay-at-home order went into effect, he had brought his computer home. And, like I said, we really are looking to limit our exposure. He'd been tracking the COVID pandemic long before we were paying close attention to it in the U.S. And so I think he maybe saw this coming.
So you guys are pretty much together all day long and all night long. Is that correct?
Oh, my goodness, Jim.
Yeah, here's the thing. Now, see, somebody could question what I do. I have a Chamber of Commerce on one side of my building, and I have this television studio on the other side. Now, I come here for probably a couple of hours a day. It gets me out of the house. I don't see anybody. There's nobody in here but me, and when I've done some interviews, they're actually 10 feet away from me. So, I've had the mayor of Seaside in here and a few other people and so on, but this is fine. This way I don't have to vacuum if I do it via the telephone.
And so remember, I was just saying too, I think that the media has never been more essential than it is right now. I don't always love what they put out, but I really love the fact that they are pushing hard and that they're making sure that the public knows what's going on and understands, understands the gravity of what we're dealing with. And that what the county is doing to keep our community safe, it's really our local media who are the spokespeople delivering that information back out to the community. So, thank you for your work, essential work.
Well, essential work. It's a good excuse for me to get out of the house. So I don't have it as bad as my wife does, but I will take her out we go out for rides, somewhere on the, So here, let's talk a little bit of your role on the school board. How long have you been on the school board?
Yeah, I joined the school board in 2015, and it has just been the most immense pleasure to work with my colleagues. I'm so proud of the executive team that we've put together at MPUSD. I think you can usually, in times of crisis is when you can you get to benefit from all of the preparation that you've done and having excellent leadership in place. And MPUSD, under the direction and leadership of our superintendent, PK Dithenbaugh, has really, really risen to this challenge and is working to ensure that all of our students not only have the academic content that they need, but that they are cared for and feel loved and supported during this, this bizarre time that we never could have anticipated.
Now, your school district has offices in Monterey. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Monterey Peninsula Unified School District has about 10,000 students from preschool through adult education. So we're K-12 educational institutions. Have schools, we've got 21 schools in Monterey, Seaside, and Marina.
Yes.
The main offices are in Monterey, down across the street from the Monterey Library.
Okay. And
we've transitioned all 10,000 students to distance learning. And, one of the challenges you read about in sort of some of the larger Southern California districts is that they've got thousands and thousands of students who they've lost any communication with. So once the kids stop showing up at school, the school district no longer has any communication with that child. And one of the things I think we can all be really proud of is that NPUSD is having, on a weekly basis, our no contact rate for a student is under 1% at most of our school sites, which means that we are remaining in weekly communication with every single one, almost nearly every single one of our families, to make sure that child is either receiving the academic work that they need or the social emotional supports that they need. If there are barriers, things like they don't have a technology device to get on, we've distributed thousands of laptops to students and families who need a laptop. And then we've got, internet connectivity challenges for many of our families. And so we're busy deploying Wi-Fi hotspots to individual homes of families if that's a barrier and they need a support with that. We also have deployed out school buses that are providing hotspots.
I'm providing what? Hotspot.
So
I see, for their computers and stuff.
So Lucky's, like the Lucky's parking lot in Marina, has a school bus.
Oh.
If you're an NPUSD family, you can drive into the parking lot, sit in the parking lot, and access free Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
From that hotspot.
Well, that when this all came about, the thing about the kids are staying home, we're closing the schools. You can see that and maybe accept it for a week or two, maybe a month. But this is longer than a month so far, right? And it's going to be.
I cried.
Pardon?
I cried. The first 2 weeks, I was like, okay, we can roll with this.
Yeah.
And then we announced that school was closing for the rest of the year, and that was a rough.
I would think that first of all, obviously becomes less structured. Is that
so in MPUSD we call it asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning would be where there's a time and you have to be logged on to your computer at 10 o'clock,
right,
and then you have to be logged on to your next class at 11 o'clock, and you have to be on this Zoom call at 12 o'clock. So asynchronous.
Does that include first graders and everything?
Yeah, for all of our kiddos.
Wow.
And there are sometimes, my son, for instance, yesterday on Tuesdays, he has a sort of a Zoom classroom meetup, but it's one time a week where he meets with his teacher and all the kids in his class.
Yeah. Okay.
But the rest of the work that's being assigned is sort of assignments. They have a special, we call it a Google Classroom, where they log on and see, what are the assignments for this week, and then they work on them at their own pace and turn them in based on when the due date is set up.
Well,
but it's with the older students who are self-directed. I think we're hearing from some parents, and they're saying like, "Hey, my kid's finishing all their work, and they don't have enough to do." And we're hearing from other parents who, maybe their kids aren't as self-directed, and it is more of a struggle because the parents are suddenly having to take on that role of teacher.
So come June, will there be any kids graduating from their class? How's that work?
We are, yeah. So we've done a couple things at MPUSD just to take the. So we gave our students the option to do a credit, no credit for their final semester, or to continue receiving grades. The state college system has made it clear that they will not be penalizing students this year, given the bizarre circumstances.
Yeah.
So a student who decides to take a credit, no credit, doesn't have to worry about not having a grade affect their GPA.
Is there going to be a summer vacation?
And I think we'll be getting more information. I think each school district is going to handle it differently. How they work with summer school. one of the things that we're really worried about is, there are some students, right, like my son, who has 3 adults in this household who are ensuring that he gets his work done, that he's not having sort of lost learning or losing content right now. There are many other students who maybe, there's multiple children in a family and the parents don't have technology available to them. And we worry that some of those kids are going to be falling behind. And so we're going to have to figure out as a school and learning community, how do you make up for lost time? How do you make sure that those kids get, additional hours of instruction? How do we make sure that they get, that they're not, falling farther behind? Because they are already the students who would be most at risk.
By the way, your school district covers what schools, if I may?
Okay, so we've got Monterey High School,
yes,
High School, Marina High School,
uh-huh.
Post High School. We have Los Albalos Middle School, Seaside Middle School, Colton Middle School in Monterey, and then we have a whole host of elementary schools,
okay.
Foothill, La Mesa, Marina Vista, Crumpton, King Academy of the Arts, Delray Woods, Highlands.
And if I may, what there's another thing in Monterey, the Monterey County Board of Education. That's another?
The County Office of Education is another institution. They provide the school over at the juvenile hall for our incarcerated youth and other sort of learning programs.
Well, but don't they do like Salinas High and so on?
No, so actually in Monterey County we have 24 different school districts.
Oh,
the
great.
Salinas High School is under the Salinas Union High School District.
All by itself?
Many of the elementary schools in Salinas are under Salinas City Elementary School District. You've got the Alisal School District. You've got, Santa Rita School District, Freckles, Washington. There's a lot of school districts. But Monterey Peninsula Unified is the largest K-12 district in the county. And then Salinas City Elementary and Salinas Union High School District would be the other 2 large ones.
But I think MCOE, is that the Office of Education?
And then the County Office of Education.
And that's the one that's on Blanca Road, and they have the great television studio there and everything?
Yeah.
I'd sure like to have that here, but that's okay. Anyway, that's but they have a nice facility over there. So what schools do they cover?
So they provide education for students who aren't in one of our other districts.
Oh.
So the students who are at the juvenile hall or our youth center are incarcerated youth. The County Office of Education has a school that they operate out there for those students.
Wow. Okay. So when
the County Office of Education also provides a lot of professional development. They do all of our finance for all of the school districts. So the paychecks are all issued through the County Office of Education.
Oh,
they do a lot of sort of oversight and large.
So you guys are all together somehow.
We work closely. All the school districts are working very closely together.
Okay, all right. And where do you see us? If do you think we're going to go back to school in the fall? What do you have any idea?
Jim, I hope so. I think that we're going to be looking to the state for some guidance on that.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking. Our superintendents are all meeting on a regular basis to stay coordinated as a county. So much of this I think depends on what the progression of this pandemic looks like in Monterey County. And I wish I had a magic, the ball, like a crystal ball to look into and see. But if we have a spike in cases and we have to return to some form of shelter in place.
I wonder how many kids. I wonder how many kids are going to get spoiled from this. Maybe there's. I'm sure some kids are having a rough time, but there's probably some kids say, "Hey, this is pretty neat. I don't want to go. I don't want to have to walk back to school. I don't have to put up with the bullies there. I'm here by myself. I'm the king." They might want to do that.
Yeah, I can tell you bedtimes have become later and later and later.
Oh.
And the amount of Minecraft that gets played in this house is astronomical. And the number of special treats that get doled out just to keep everyone happy are significant. So
yeah. Well, what time does school start? 10 o'clock?
COVID?
Well, any kind of are all classes the same? They start at the same time. You said something about 10 o'clock. Is that or some start earlier?
Yeah. So when you talk about asynchronous learning, that means that the assignments are just waiting for that student when they log on.
I see.
And so maybe that student and that family log on at 8 a.m. just to keep things consistent, or maybe that family and that student log on at noon.
So it's individually done, you're saying. Is that right? It's not all it's kind of individually done?
Yeah, individually done. Wow. Asynchronous would be sort of on the student's schedule, not the teacher's schedule.
Yeah. That old school.
Other things, Jim, I just want to point out, for many students in PUSD, we have like I said, 1 in 10 of our students was homeless prior to COVID, and we have upwards of 70% of our students who rely on the free lunch program at schools, where they come to school and they get a free breakfast and they get a free lunch.
Oh, yeah.
So when we sent all those students home, the district is continuing to provide free lunches and breakfasts. So at almost every one of our school sites, every day that school would be in session, we have nutrition services staff who are there, and they will provide a meal to any child under the age of 18 who drives through that meal pickup line. It'll be a lunch and then a breakfast for the following day. And we are providing thousands of these meals to families who drive through to pick up lunches for their child.
Wow.
So we're continuing to make sure that those kids are fed.
Yeah, very interesting. You brought up earlier about, I think you were saying, and I'm assuming that means 1 out of 10 of our kids are homeless in Monterey County?
1 in 10 students in Monterey County,
yes.
According to, there's different classifications of homeless, but by the McKinney-Vento classification, these are students who are classified as homeless.
Now, what is that? Can you tell me the difference? Because I don't see a lot of kids out on the street with a shopping cart. I don't see that. So tell me, where are they?
And as a parent, you're going to work really hard. So a lot of these students are children who are living in the garages of homes. They're living doubled and tripled up with other families. If you're a family, if my family of 4 is living in a single bedroom in a house with 3 other families, that classifies my child as a homeless student. My child is not living in ideal housing situation. He may have a roof over his head, but that is far from an ideal living situation. If my family, if I'm a single mom and my son and I are couch surfing to different friends' houses every week, and we stay, maybe at my mom's house for a week, and then my girlfriend's house for a week, and then we stay, crash at a hotel for a couple nights, and then we. I got
that. I'm just thinking, I'd like to see that because any kids that are homeless is a problem. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
So I've just when I've heard that number, I've said, what? How can it be 1 out of 10?
And that's why I want to make the difference between. So McKinney-Vento is a federal classification of homeless, and it has very clear guidelines around what classifies a student as McKinney-Vento homeless. And then the HUD definition of homeless is a different definition. So when we talk about our homeless census and the 3,000 unsheltered homeless in Monterey County, that's a different definition than the McKinney-Vento definition. So it's a way to identify students who are not in ideal living situations. And the term that the federal government uses is homeless.
I've heard this kind of a question in a questionnaire a couple of times. Do you live in a home or do you live in an apartment? And the problem with that question is that obviously if you live in an apartment and that's
so your home,
that's your home, okay?
Yep.
I resent those kind of questions that you have to have a house to be a home. No, you have to, And when I think of a homeless kid, I really think of somebody. Well, I'm going to say that has no parents around, who's by himself. Now, it could be in a foster home. I don't know if that would be anyway. It gets.
Well, and in a foster home, that student is in a home. I think one of the other things when I joined the school board, everyone in Marina talked about, we have 40% of our kids who aren't living with a primary parent, and I thought that's insane. 40% of the students in Marina schools not living with their mother or their father.
Well, now that's another figure. Boy, you're scaring me now.
Well, and that one is we don't have any way to confirm that. These are students who are not officially in foster care. They're not officially receiving any, county benefits or support. So I started going through. I live on a nice, it's a single family home neighborhood. I started going through down the street, looking at each house. And at that point, that was, in 2011. We had we had my cousin living with us. She was in high school. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any official custody of her, but we were caring for her because she needed to be cared for. So that's one. Her parents were not there. We had the kids across the street that were living with their family, but they also had one of their cousins living with them. Mm. The kid next door was living with his parents. The other little girl on the other side was living with her grandparents. So when I started going down the list, there really were a significant portion of kids who were not living with a primary parent. And they were being cared for and they were being loved and, they had a home and a bedroom and food every day. But there's a different dynamic that plays out when you're a child without a mom or a dad in your life.
And sometimes you don't think about it, but, I grew up in the avenues in San Francisco. I had both my parents there, although I heard them yelling and arguing a lot, which I guess is normal. But, I never had to worry about, you got to go live with your cousin for a while. I never had to do that. And I don't know how I'd be if that had to happen. That'd be something else.
Well, and I think it's wonderful, right? It's wonderful that Marina has so many families who are willing, and loving and caring for each other. I think it's actually a testament to the resiliency and strength of a community. But it's also an indication that there are some challenges that our kids are facing.
Let's do this. Let's move along with your campaign for a minute because we're getting down.
We're out of time.
Well, not out of time yet. Now I'm just trying to. I got your list. I took your list. I copied it and put it in my 24-point stuff so I can read it without having to have glasses on. Although I have glasses on. Anyway, so you wrote a question down here. So how do you feel about your campaign? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I'm feeling really good. No one's ever run a campaign during a pandemic, at least not in my memory. Mm-hmm. Those around us haven't run a campaign in a pandemic. But, the primary election was in March, and we worked so hard to reach out to voters, to talk to folks. And the issues of housing were at the top of the list. I think those will continue to be at the top of the list. You do polling, and the polling kind of tells you these are some of the big topic issues that you need to talk about. But for me, and the reason that I ran, and the reason that I care so deeply about this work is really sort of the health and human services side of what the county has mandated responsibilities for. Mm-hmm. And those issues have never been more significant and serious than they are right now. So, the voters spoke clearly. We were in a four-way race. There were four candidates running. Right. And we were able to come out with a 10-point lead over my closest competitor, which I think speaks to the way that the voters, what the voters care about and who they want leading them.
I've told your competitor? I've had your competitor on here before, okay?
Oh, yeah. And, Steve and I went to college together. We go way back.
Uh-huh. And I told him because of, he has a certain personality about him. He does this thing with the Christmas show over at the church in Salinas.
Okay.
He's like the head MC at the beginning of the program. And he's this real, I wouldn't want to say a clown, but something like, and I said to him, I said, "You sure you're not a Republican?" And cause he seems more like he should be a Republican, but that's.
Well, and this is a nonpartisan seat.
It is. It is.
And I'm going to say, the issues that the county deals with, I don't think that they need to be partisan. Really, the county's,
No, but I'll tell you one of the things. I myself, because it is nonpartisan, the fact that the Democratic headquarters here has endorsed you and have your signs up in their window, that I tell you, just from the outside, that bothers me a little bit. Not enough to persuade my vote one way or the other, but it's just something about that. Only because I don't know if it's nonpartisan. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, well, I'm looking to build a broad coalition of support. Them, I'd love your support. Having them on. We have a good portion of our local voters are party affiliated, and they do look to their party leadership for guidance about how to vote. So I'm really proud of that endorsement that I've received. Yeah. We've got also been endorsed by Labor and by the Sierra Club and by Vote Mama, and I'm looking to be a representative for everybody. And I think some of the conversations that I had, I met with the Chamber of Commerce's here on the peninsula in Salinas, and I said, look, you may not always like what I have to say, but I'm going to be truthful with you, and we may not always agree, but I'm going to always hear what you have to say. I will always hear you out. So
here's the deal. We're recording today. I'm going to replay this program Saturday, by the way.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll be able to see it or tell a friend. I will send you a link for that. Unfortunately, the link won't be. I might be able to get it done Friday. Let me think if I can get that done. I have a guy that he comes in he goes in my computer here and does it remotely, the editing. So, but I will replay it Saturday. But I will have a link that I'll send you. And I want to thank you. We'll get you back here before before November. Okay.
Anytime, Jim. I'm happy. And as to leave folks with, if people do have questions or concerns or need resources right now, the best phone number to call is 211. 211 is doing a lot of information referral if people can't pay their rent, if they need food, if they're worried about, where to go because they think they have COVID symptoms. Call 211. 211 is going to get them hooked up with the right resources.
All right. Wendy, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I think we'll, maybe in a month or two we'll get you back and see what updates there are, okay? I don't think...
Jim, thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Cover your face, wash your hands.
Yes, wash your...
Soon.
That's the other thing, too. It's I can't stop touching, once you tell me don't touch your face, I always have an itch on my nose. Come on.
Yeah.
It's
What we do is I stay home and touch my face.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Wendy.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. Wendy Askew, Wendy Root Askew, and we're just running out of time. So I am going to go ahead and get this going. Thanks a lot for joining us today for Community Chit Chat right here on KMBY over the air at 19.4 and on the internet at KMBYTV.com.